Hi everybody, this is part 2 of our screencast on the introduction to graphing. What we're going to do in this screencast specifically is the last half of the problems. We're going to find the distance between 2 points, the midpoint of a segment. We're going to look at the equation of a circle. We're going to find the center and the radius of a circle, and we're going to graph equations of circles. So let's get started. The first thing we're doing is talking about the distance between 2 points. So the question is to find the distance between these 2 points. The distance formula is the distance between 2 points is equal to the difference. It's going to be equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So what we're going to do is take the two x values, subtract them, and square them. Take the two y values, subtract them, and square them. So when I do that with this problem, I just use this as my second point, this as my first point. It doesn't really matter as long as I'm subtracting the x values. So -2 minus 3 and 2 minus -6. Be real careful with those negative signs. So -2 minus 3 is -5, and 2 minus -6 is a +8. So we need to square both of those. I just want to caution you about this -5 squared. If you're doing that on your calculator and you type -5 squared on your calculator, that answer is going to be wrong because what you actually have in the problem is a -5 in parentheses. And there's a difference between those answers. There's a difference between when you have -5 in parentheses and when you don't. So make sure if you're doing it on your calculator that you use the parentheses correctly. This is correct. It should be +25. So -5 squared plus 8 squared is the square root of 25 plus 64. And 25 plus 64 is 89. So the distance between those 2 points is equal to the square root of 89. And if we do that on our calculator, press the second button and then x squared to access the square root and plug 89 in there. And when you press enter, you get approximately 9.4 when we round it to the nearest tenth. And you'll see that on this screen. So it's approximately 9.4. Just to let you know, on MyMathLab, if it asks for an exact answer, that's going to be in the square root form. And if it asks for an approximate answer, that's going to be the decimal. And it'll always tell you how many decimal places to round it to, so make sure you're paying attention to that. Okay, we're going to do midpoint next. So now we're going to take those same 2 points and find the midpoint of the segment. The formula for midpoint also requires you to take the x values and the y values of those 2 points. But this time we're going to add the x values and divide by 2 and add the y's and divide by 2. So -2 plus 3 and 2 plus -6, adding the x values, adding the y values, and then dividing by 2. And I worked it out for you. So we get 1/2 and that for the x coordinate and -4/2 for the y coordinate. And when we simplify -4/2, it's equal to -2. So 1/2 -2 is the midpoint. And I wanted you to see that on the graph. So here's the two endpoints, -2, 2 and 3, -6. The length of that segment is approximately 9.4. And the midpoint we discovered was at 1/2 -2. So it's right about there. And you can see that definitely looks about where that midpoint would be. Okay, circles are next. So first let's talk about the equation of a circle. So the equation of a circle in standard form looks like this. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. The center of the circle is the coordinate hk. Notice It's not negative h, negative k. It's positive h, positive k. So we're going to take the opposite of this. And the radius is r, not r squared. So it's the square root of this term. So let's look at an example. So if I have an equation of a circle like x plus 5 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 16, the center of the circle is going to be negative 5, positive 2. And the radius is going to be 4. So notice it's the opposite of positive 5, opposite of negative 2, and the radius is the square root of 16. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is talk about graphing this circle. So if you're going to graph this circle by hand, the first thing you want to do is graph the center of the circle. So the center is at negative 5, 2. So we go to the left negative 5 and up 2. Now, from the center, draw a little dot. Since the radius is 4, 4 units up from the center, 4 units down, 4 to the left, and 4 to the right. And then connect those dots with a nice smooth circle. And that's what the equation would look like. All right, doing it on MyMathLab is a little bit different. So I want to go through an example from MyMathLab with you. Okay, so here it's asking us to graph the equation of the circle, x plus 5 squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to 16. So I'm going to click on the enlarge the graph tool. And the first thing I want to do, let me move this up so that you can see that if I can. Let me see if I can get that in the window for you. There you go. That's a little bit better. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the circle tool. And remember, we want to graph the center of the circle first. So the center of the circle is negative 5, negative 1. So I'll go to the left negative 5 and down negative 1 and graph the center. Notice that, let me leave that here, but look at the coordinates of that point, negative 5, negative 1. Okay, now from there, we're going to go up, down, left, and right the radius. So if r squared is equal to 16, the radius is equal to 4. So from there, I'm going to go to the right 4 units. Notice it automatically goes up 4, goes to the left 4, goes down 4, because it's drawing that circle, kind of like what you see if you're drawing a circle like in a Word document. All right, so once you do that, you're going to save that. You can't see that on here. And you'll see that your answer is correct. All right, so that's how you do it on MyMathLab. All right, the next thing we want to do is put all of this information together. So here's the type of question you might see in your homework. The points negative 9, 2 and 4, 8 are the endpoints of the diameter of a circle. Find the radius. Now remember, the diameter is the length across the circle going through the center. So the radius is going to be half that long. So to find the radius of the circle, what we're going to do first is we're going to find the length of the diameter using the distance formula. And then we're going to divide that diameter by 2. So I use the coordinates that I was given in the distance formula, subtracted the x values, negative 9 minus 4, subtracted the y values, 2 minus 8, and then squared those. So that's negative 13 squared and negative 6 squared. And I simplified it for you. So the diameter is the square root of 205. That's what you get from the distance formula. But remember, the radius is half that long. So if you're going to use your calculator to estimate this, the square root of 205 over 2, let me show you how to do that on your calculator. So to do that on my calculator, I'm going to access the square root, and it's 205. On the newer calculators, you have to remember to use this arrow key to get outside of the radical. And then I'll press divided by 2. And the answer should be 7.16. I think this question on your homework asks you to round it to the nearest hundredth. If you have an older calculator, when you press this square root, this parenthesis comes up that you have no control over. And then you're going to put 205 in there, close the parenthesis. You don't have to use the arrow key, and then divide by 2. And you should get the same answer. Play with your calculator just to check and make sure. All right, that's all I got for you. Good luck. Email me with any questions.